Welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at zones and zone portals as we start making this look a little bit more like an MMO. But first we need to upgrade to the latest version of the OWS software. So you're going to want to go here and download Open World Starter Plugin 2018-0805. So we're going to need that before you can follow through with today's tutorial. If you don't have it, it may work, but I'll tell you later what you may run into a few problems that I ran into. So it's been updated. So what we're going to do, I've downloaded the file. Let me go back here first. Always want to make sure we delete it. So we're going to go into our OWS plugin, delete, come back here and grab our zip file. Go to our plugins folder, copy this out, and into our plugins folder. Okay, and that will update it. Don't need to make any changes to any blueprints. And now we're going to open our U project. While that's loading, let's take a look at this. So zones are ways that we can basically zones are ways that we can basically split up our world into different zone servers. And so what we're going to do here is, I've already created it, but I'll show you the settings here. So we've got this map name, our world, which is our persistent map, if you remember. And then we're going to have this our world 1 and our world 2. And that's going to basically take care of two different zones because we're going to split our map into two. And so you would hit add zone here if you don't already have these, and I'll show you the settings I'm using. So I've got our world for the map name, that's the UE4 map name. The zone name is our world 1. Because we want to show something here in how this works, we're going to temporarily set this to 1. You may have it as 60 from a previous one, but we're going to set it to 1 because I want to show something. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to come in and have our world 2 is the zone name, and the soft player cap at 1. So you want to make sure that you have those set up for our test today. And I also have 2 characters here created because I'm going to use those later. I'm going to need to log in twice. And remember that you can always create a new character by loading up the login screen, and you can hit to create new account, and you can create a new character. And it is actually on a separate account. So it's not just a second character on the same account, it's a second account as well. Okay, so once we get in here, I'm going to load everything up. And we'll get out of wireframe mode. Okay. You may or may not have this enabled, but if you go to View Options, you'll see Show Plugin Content. So if you don't have that checked, check that. And by doing that, you'll get this OWS plugin content here. And we're interested in this OWS Travel to Map BP. So pick an area in your map where you've got like a nice divider. And so that's what we're going to do here. We're going to drop this down somewhere about here. And we're going to start making it bigger, maybe 1,000 this way, 800 this way maybe. I don't know, something like that. Slide it over. Maybe a little bit more this way. Kind of get a good spot where it makes sense to divide it. And okay, that looks pretty good. And so what we're going to do to start is we're going to copy these location values into this location on map. I always start with these. I often get these values wrong. If they're wrong, really bad things happen. You usually end up falling through the landscape. So if that happens, I'll show you how to fix it. Okay, so we're going to say that this is our world 1 over on the left side, and this is our world 2 over on the left, on that side. So We're going to call this one, we want to go to our world 2, okay? Because this is going to be the one that's on this side, and this is where it's easy to get things mixed up. We're going to use dynamic spawn location. What that means is that if we cross here, we'll end up here. If we cross here, we'll end up here. If you don't do dynamic spawn location, everybody ends up at exactly this location with no offset. So we don't really want gate camping here, and so we're going to use dynamic. The next thing we have to do is look at this dynamic spawn axis. And so you'll see here that the green, we're on the green, along the green, which is the Y, and so we're going to switch this to Y. And we also want to use dynamic spawn rotation. What that will do is it means if we go through at an angle like this, we'll be pointing that angle on this side. If we go through like this, we'll be pointing this angle. So it basically just tries to make it a little more seamless. And then what we have to do is I start by copying it. So Control-C, Control-V, and we now have a second one, and we're going to name these in a minute because it'll make it easier. So we're going to now shift this by 100. So we're at 750 here, and smaller is going to our right. So we're going to subtract from it, and you see it shift over. We're now going to name these so that portal from our world 1 to world 2. Copy that name. Come back to this one. I'm going to switch it. This one goes from 2 to 1. This will help in making sure that these names match. This one goes to 2, therefore that's right. Then this one here, we need to switch to 1. When I was testing this, I forgot to switch that, and bad things happened. Can't actually load back into the same map that you're already in, or it'll put you at 0, 0, 0, which didn't work out too well. It's way over in that corner at the edge of the map. So now what we want to do, as you see, we have this one is the leftmost one, and this one is the rightmost one. We want the leftmost one to basically spawn somewhere over to here, and we want the rightmost one to spawn somewhere over to here. So we're going to start with this one. And remember, we found that this one was at 750. Hold on. No. So this is what we got to look at, not this. It's easy to get mixed up. This one's at 650. This one's at 750. We're going to do a 200 buffer. So this one's at 650, so we'll go 200 less, so it's going to get us at 450. Now we need to switch back to this one and set this to 450. So this number is exact. These two numbers are based on where you enter it. Okay, that's what this dynamic spawn location does. The X value becomes an exact. It will put you exactly at 161,450, but these two will be offset by up and down and left and right as you go through the plane. So now we're going to come back to this one, which needs to go more than 250 of this one, which was 750, which is still sitting here. So we end up at 950. It's really easy to get confused, and it doesn't work out well if you do it wrong. So now we basically have our two portals crossing here. And so what we want to do now is we want to set ourselves a nice starting position. And I see here that we have an actor. Oh, that's actually that actor over there. Interesting. Is this? Oh, that's the chat manager. Make sure that's hidden in game. There we go. Okay. So what I do is I go grab an empty actor, and we want to make sure that we're on this side of it safely. We don't want to be in that bad zone where we just barely move. Pull that up a little bit. And now we're going to go back over here to our characters. And we're going to go to this character in particular. Make sure we're in our world 1. That was the left side that we wanted to be in. And we're going to copy down these numbers over here. So copy down these numbers. This last one's the most particular. If you drop this too low, you'll be below the terrain and you'll just keep falling. If you keep falling, your numbers will get really negative here, and you got to come back here and fix it before you try again, because you'll basically be out of playable space. So we're going to save that one. We're also going to come to the second one, and we're going to set that one too, because we need it for our test as well. Gotta be careful with these numbers. I get them wrong a lot, and then you end up spawning underneath the map, or you're really not sure where you spawned or what's going on. And our world 1. So we're gonna save that. Okay, so now we're good. Now, I did find one thing that was interesting is that, so you can actually play your game in level, doing it the full login way by unchecking run dedicated server and loading the login map. But what I found is that for some reason when I play in editor, it doesn't spawn the landscape. It never spawns. So I'm still looking into that one to see what's going on there. But it works perfectly fine from out here, which is what we're going to do. So I want you to go into the RPG World Server folder. And if you haven't set this up yet, this would be a good time to set it up. I have not set it up, so that's good. I can show you how to do this if you haven't done it yet. So you'll see here that we have the API key. I did get that in there. So if you don't have the API key, put that in there. And then you'll see we have this, turn off word wrap. You'll see we have these path to dedicated server. So make sure that's the path to your editor, your 4.20 editor. That's mine, so that's where it is. And then we've got this thing here. You might just be able to put in your name, but it all depends where you put this. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to copy where the U project is. Got to make sure we don't lose this ampersand quote semicolon. So we come after that, but up until the backslash before the U project. So now if you look at this, what's in between those quotes is the full path to that open world starter U project. You see that? That's not right. This next step's not going to work. So I'm saving that. And now I'm going back in here, and I'm going to run this as administrator. I actually don't have to do that because I created a policy. If anybody wants that, let me know, and I can get to the policy file. So you don't have to run it as administrator. You basically just have to give the user permission to open up port 8181. So I'm going to hit start server. And I always hit test connection. That makes sure that it was able to make a round trip up to here. So I was able to get to here and get back. You can actually see that over here on home. Test connection request received. This is really useful here, this log, so you can tell what's happening if something's not working. But there it was, 9:07. I started the world server, or world server 86, and there's the test connection. So we are going to go back here, and we're going to edit our bat file. Make sure that this, in between these first quotes, is your full path to your UE4 editor. The rest of this should be correct. It has the Open World Starter U project and tells us this is the level we want to load, which is the login. Run this. If you need to look at this log, you can keep it open, but I don't really want to look at it right now. And so I'm going to do my test for demo test.com. And we're going to select our character, and it is going to launch our first zone. So this zone got launched on port 7778, and its zone instance 7046. And here we are. We're in our world. And we know that somewhere out in that direction is our portal. So let's go and see if we set it up right. And kind of remember what's there. Now it launched our next zone. Now if these had already been opened, it would have done it quicker. Oh, it seemed like we did it right. We were facing the right direction. We're on the right side of it here. Sweet. And now if we cross back across that zone, oh, we did that one right too. Sweet. Okay, so that worked out pretty good. We actually got it right the first time. If you didn't, if while you were doing that you ended up in some corner of the map or you fell through the landscape, you're going to want to go and hit that stop server button, shut it all down, open back up your U project, double check all your settings, make sure that you're crossing from the far one across the other one. That's the one that usually is what I mix up. Make sure you use the RWorld 1 and RWorld 2 and get those going in the right directions. double check all your settings, and eventually you'll get it. As I was setting it up, I did it wrong, but because I had just set it up before this, I remember the right way to do it. So if you get it wrong, it's not a big deal. You can go fix it. But I want to show you something else. So this basically lets us split up our world into zones. You might be asking, well, why did we split up our world into zones? And there's some different reasons. First of all, this world now, let's say that our cap was 80 players, right? We can now hold 160 on this map. 80 on one side, up to 80 on the other side before we have to start loading extra instances, right? And so, when you choose zone size, there's a lot of things that you might take into consideration. One of them is number of players, right? If you had a city, you might want 80 players to be in a smaller area so it gave the illusion that, hey, there's a lot more players around me, right? But if you're in a big wilderness area, you might be like, oh, I can make it really big, and because, I don't really need people to constantly see each other. It's supposed to be a wilderness. And so that can be one of the things that decides how big of area that you want each zone size to be. Another thing that you might want to look in as well is AI. So depending on how you do your AI, there's a lot of different things we do. We actually don't spawn the AI until someone's there to see it. Kind of the old adage of if the tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, does it make a sound? Well, we basically say that, hey, if nobody's around, it doesn't spawn it. And behind the scenes, we do calculations on mobs and everything, and we actually store their state. So if you go out of their zone and come back, it'll actually store where it was. So it pretends like they were there the whole time, but if no one sees them, they're actually not there. But depending on how you do that, your AI is going to cost you, right? And so it can be fairly CPU intensive depending on what you're doing. So I think that between number of players and number of AI, that's going to help you kind of decide what zone size you kind of need to be at. So those are some things to take into account. And you might say, well, okay, we're kind of stuck now because at a maximum we can only play 160 players here, but that's ideal. Well, ideal's not going to happen. Worst case is we only get to play 81, right? 80 in one side and 1 in the other, right? Or potentially 80 in one side and 0 in the other, because you don't get to decide how people are spread out across the map. And so what's going to happen here that I wanted to show you, and this is why I set the soft cap to 1, is that they'll actually start spawning extra instances of the same one. So what's going to happen here, we're now in our world 1, that's running on port 7778, but we're at the soft cap. The soft cap was 1. So when I come back here and I load up the second player, when we load up the second player, test for demo 2 test.com, and if you haven't already created a character on that one, create your new character, and after you've created that character, you may need to come over here and set the location for this character. Make sure it loads in the right place. Make sure it loads in our world 1. Preferably somewhere close to this so you can kind of see the effect if you want to follow along. If not, you can just watch what I do here. So we've got 2 of them here, right? We're running on 7778 and port 7779. And this one now sees, oh no, that server was full. I need to create a new instance. And we've loaded one on 7780. And we have not set the right location. See, that's what happens. I thought I had everything set up correctly, but I guess not. Well, at least I can show you how to fix it. So I'm going to hit Alt F4 to kill that. And then I'm going to go back to here. Open up a second one of these so I can easily copy it down. And we've got this location is the one we're going to copy from, and we're going to copy to this one. I must have typoed something as I was typing in. I thought I got it set up correctly. Oh, I think I had negative on that 16. That's exactly what I did. I had a negative. Ah. Anyway, now at least I got to show you, which is good. I got to show you how you can fix this. Okay, so we're actually going to spawn in exactly the same spot as the other one is standing. We're going to save that. And we're going to come back and start it up again. It looks like it didn't shut down cleanly. Try it again. There we go. I've noticed that when you run U projects with the editor, they're pretty buggy. When you actually go and do a full compiled standalone client and full compiled dedicated servers, they run so much better. Okay, so we'll pull this down here. Test for 2. I'm glad it failed there, so I was able to show you how you can recover from that. That's exactly what happens. You get typing in those numbers, and I put negative 16, and I should have just done 16,000 something. So now that server is already up, and so here we are. Now, as you can see, we don't see each other, right? So when you're on separate instances of zones, you don't see each other. You can't interact with each other. Only chat's the only way. So we don't see each other. But we now have 2 instances of our world 1 and 1 instance of our world 2. And by doing this, we can scale endlessly. There's really no limit. If you come back over here and we go to world servers, you can set up as many world servers as you need. So if you need to support, tens of thousands of players, just set up enough world servers to load balance across. It'll round robin through them up to this max, and you can set up as many as you need and scale to as large of a game as you want. They're all running on completely separate hardware, so they're not going to slow each other down. So by instancing like this, you're going to give people, if you set up your soft and hard caps correctly, you're based on your game. I can't really tell you what it'll be based on your game, but based on your game, you'll be able to tune those, and everybody will get a really good experience because you're basically setting a cap as to how many people could be around each other at the same time, even if somehow everybody decided to all be in the same place. So that is zones and zone portals. And if you have any questions, let me know. See ya.